Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all fandoms, welcome to the Ferret and Raccoon podcast, episode 152. I am your one and only host for this podcast, the Angry Raccoon, bringing you the second podcast of October 2020. And boy, since the last podcast, things have been getting a bit, how should I put it? Not necessarily like spooky or scary, but more worrying than anything. For those of you who don't know, or those of you not living in 2020, essentially, once again, this country, being England, has been put into a sort of lockdown situation, threat. I don't really understand what it is, but basically we're in tier 2 lockdown, which most people don't really understand and find very frustrating because they kind of seem to be giving out guidelines that don't really seem to matter or aren't really enforced. Essentially, they don't really want you to go around to anyone's houses or meet up with anyone, but yet you can still go outside. This tier 2 lockdown doesn't really make much sense, and also they're proposing the idea that during the holidays, when the school kids are not at school, the people just lock down, which is a bit bizarre, but whatever. They don't know what they're doing. We don't understand what they're saying because they don't know what they're doing. It's just a bit annoying, and it's kind of put a spanner in my plans once again, as I did want to have people on the podcast, especially for the October, November, and December podcast, and it looks like that's been pushed back, unfortunately, because I don't want to endanger anyone's life or get anyone in trouble just for them to come down to my place or me to go to theirs. So that's a bit unfortunate. And speaking of unfortunate, a lot of fairly bad things or more annoying things happened to me over the last 2 weeks or so. The first and most annoying was the fact that an order of limited edition vinyls that I ordered last month finally came in the mail, which I was pretty happy about, the fact that I didn't have to pay, any kind of shipping or collection taxes for the most part. And annoyingly, for some reason, because I didn't answer the door immediately when the post person knocked, they threw my package over my garden gate, which is 6 feet in the air, and the package landed on the concrete ground. So when I finally opened my packages, they all had damage. They'd all been damaged. All the artwork and the sleeves that keep the vinyls in have now got like creases and dog ears now. Particularly one vinyl, a double LP vinyl, the actual discs themselves have almost popped out of the cellophane wrapper, and they've kind of ripped through the paper slip, which keeps the actual discs themselves protected, and they've ripped that. So literally you can see inside the packaging of the vinyl, and it's ripped. So now, even if I wanted to sell these vinyls or had intentions of selling them, I can't sell them at at its relative original release price. I have to discount it. So they've messed up my shipping, they've messed up my packaging, and it's really upset me because what's the point in buying all these things? I just think to myself, when some idiot just threw a package in the air, like, who does that? Like, I don't know. I'm sure most people don't necessarily know how much a vinyl record weighs, but it's enough for you to notice, and it's enough for you to not throw. And regardless, you don't throw people's boxes or items. Like, you just don't do that. And I swear to God, if I ever find the person who did this, I'm going to have some serious words to say to them, because that is an absolute piss take. But the annoyingness doesn't really stop there, or unfortunateness, as I should really say. One of my goldfish unfortunately passed away, which was quite sad, especially given the fact that they'd been sick for acting strange for about a couple months, and they just finally passed away, which is a shame to see. Also, my PS4 controller broke, so I had to go and buy a new one, wasting even more money. And then, for whatever reason, my PS4 corrupted somehow, which we're going to get into PS4 in a minute. But yeah, somehow Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, and the PS4 together corrupted, which meant I had to back up all my save files, back up a few games, delete the damn game, and then reinstall it all over again just to get it to work, which is ridiculous. But on a slightly positive end, I did actually beat Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, and I really enjoyed it. Mind a few things that I really don't like about the game. I'm not going to go into massive details about it, but to be honest, a lot of the flaws are really starting to highlight themselves in the replay value of it. essentially it's not a fun experience to actually want to complete everything, 100% everything, especially when the game is as difficult as it is, and then you have forced and needless difficulty like the cryptic crate box placements, which seem to always just mess you up because you either just miss them or you end up killing yourself, trying to get them, and the really, really annoying load times, which upwards are about 20 to 45 seconds long. It's kind of putting a damper on the game, and I know what people are going to say, oh, just don't do the 100%. Well, what about the person who wants their money's worth? You can't really say that to them. That's like the definition of you playing the new Call of Duty game and the button to throw the grenade doesn't work. And you're basically saying, oh, the game's flawed because I can't throw the grenade, and me saying it's a first-person shooter, you don't need the grenade button to work, just shoot people. Not really fair, is it, to say that? But speaking of PS4, we're going to talk about some really bizarre and kind of, frankly, annoying news coming from Sony, and that is the fact that the PlayStation Store is updating to make buying digital games needlessly difficult. Now, for whatever reason, as of October 19th on PC and October 28th on mobile, you will not be able to purchase PSP, PlayStation Portable, PlayStation 3 and PS Vita games or avatars or like themes via those platforms on the PlayStation Store. So you can't go on your computer and buy a game. You can't go on your mobile and buy a game despite having a PSN account. Now, why is this bad? Because despite the fact that anything that you bought before this update, you will still be able to play and you still own, and the fact that you'll still be able to buy digital, let's say PS3 games, you can only buy said PS3 games digitally on the PS3 console. You can't buy it from PS4. You can't buy it anywhere else. You have to have a PS3 or a PSP or a PS Vita to buy games on that console, which is really silly that they've basically just removed all the accessibility and the option of anyone wanting to play anything older than the console it's from or from a different platform. Like, I really don't understand this mentality, because there's games on like the PSP which you have to have a PSP now to go and download them. I don't even think the PSP store even exists anymore, so that's a shame. That's a good few years of gaming history gone, and I really don't understand this stupidness to add limitations to something, especially when Sony is trying to push so hard for everyone to go digital, and they just remove that option for so many people. There are a lot of games that are very hard to find physically, and it's nice that people can, if they really want to play these games, spend the money to digitally have them and play them and enjoy them, and Sony is just kind of going, no, you can't do that anymore. And the really pointless thing about this whole situation is that it benefits absolutely no one. I mean, newcomers to gaming, or let's say a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation 5, they have a limited history in which they can buy now for some reason. Because if they want to play that one game that their friend was playing or they heard about, you got to go buy a PS3, which is fine, but here's the thing, that shouldn't be an option or a choice or a forced choice, however you want to phrase it, when that option was there in the beginning. It's so bizarre. Also, the developers who made, these games on PSP and PS Vita, these hidden gems, these games that are must plays of people who like, certain genres of games or just want to get this game because they heard it's good, their game is basically buried now and somewhat hidden, because you cannot play it digitally without having a PSP, which is such a shame because it's just inaccessible now. No idea why they've gone about this, because by making PS3 and PS4 and PSPs and PS Vita games locked behind, actually buying a physical console for some reason, to which they'll probably just take down the PS Store anyway, people are going to go out and buy these consoles from old gaming shops. So none of the money is going to go to Sony. Because here's the thing, why would you bother actually go on the PSN store for PlayStation 3 knowing that you can only buy PS3 games on there? You might as well just buy it physically. And Sony's not going to make any money from this. I don't know if this is their mentality of, if we can't make money from it, no one can. I don't know if this is them trying to spite, pre-owned shops and that. I don't really understand their intention. Sony's making a lot of weird decisions right on the heel of PlayStation 5 coming out. And not to mention all this whole, stupidness about them listening in on voice chat conversations and that with the new update. I don't know what Sony is doing. Sony, they're just, I don't even know. It's so confusing because I don't understand why, of all times, it's really baffling. And I'm struggling to find the words because I can't comprehend this stupidness or where it's come from. I really don't get it. But I'm rambling at this point. It's just a stupid idea that's only gonna hurt themselves in the end. Let's actually move on to some trailers. I've got 2, maybe 3, depending on if I actually want to talk about this one trailer. And the first trailer we're going to talk about is Jiu Jitsu. And this is a rather generic looking story and kind of setup for a film. Definitely a more like science fiction, martial arts-ish setup, chosen one, bad guy, we're going to fight, that kind of situation. But it's not taking itself too seriously, which is good. And it's focusing more on the actual martial arts, the fighting, and the actual choreography of things. And also we have Nicolas Cage and Tony Jaa, who are always fun. So already it's kind of promising for the most part in terms of like what it has going for it. And the real highlight of this trailer and why I'm talking about it is the fighting and the choreography. It's both awesome and realistic in a sense, as there's an energy to it, and the way it's filmed is perfect for this kind of film, or the kind of style or approach they're going for, where when we're fighting, we are fighting. Full focus is on the fighting, every hit, every action. The camera is nice and pulled back. There's very few editing or edits, I should say, and it honestly is pretty good to actually just see an actual fight play out, because so many films nowadays, when they do action, they do too many cuts. They're cutting back and forth, it just gets confusing. You have no idea who's fighting who or what's going on. A good example of good editing and good choreography is once again the John Wick films, where there are a lot of long shots of just great choreography that are both smooth and fluid, and you get exactly what's going on, and it feels awesome and looks awesome. And that's honestly the highlight. It does look like it's going to be one of those like cheaper but fun films. I can honestly see this being a film that becomes a lot of people's like maybe guilty pleasure, or it's a lot of their honorable mentions come the end of the year, given that there are very rarely any films coming out this year anyway. And it honestly does look like a lot of fun. It looks like the kind of film I would watch just for a laugh and hopefully get a little bit more out of it. The CGI in it is a bit cartoony, and the bad guy's suit is a bit campy, but I'm not sure if that's just a budgetary thing or just an intentionally, they intentionally want it to look silly or campy. It's hard to say, but it does bother me a little bit. And we're going to move on to the next trailer. This is I guess somewhat of a big one, and that's going to be Monster Hunter 2020. This is unfortunately the film adaptation based on the Capcom video game series of the same name. And simply put, they've just taken a game series that is a thrill ride and turned it into a generic military film, because that's what fans and audiences want. Another Transformers film, because it basically is just a Transformers film. Like, I don't really understand like the intentions behind this, but it's honestly no surprise that it's directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who you may know as a guy who's done a lot of trash film game adaptations, most infamously doing the Resident Evil films, which are just god awful. And Mila Jovovich is in it, who is married to Anderson, so she's just in every film she's in now, and I don't particularly think she's a very good actress. Also, she looks way too pretty to be someone in the military. I don't necessarily know how the military works, but I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to be that dolled up on a mission, so to speak. So, it would have been nice to actually see her, actually look, like she's actually there to actually fight a war as opposed to look pretty. But then again, it's his wife, and I'm pretty sure she had a hand in, I've got to be wearing my makeup and all that rubbish, focusing on the things that don't matter, essentially. And, this trailer is just awful. Like, I'm not even, like, a massive fan of the Monster Hunter series. I want to get into it, but even I can tell this was awful. I mean, that Guardians of the Galaxy line was terrible. It's so outdated and pathetic. And it's also a very weird line in and itself, because for whatever reason this film has we get teleported to another world or dimension, which has been done to death in all these adaptations from cartoon to film or video game to film. And it's just boring. Like, it's nothing interesting. There's nothing special about that. And also, the Guardians of the Galaxy don't travel to different dimensions. They travel to different planets, as far as I'm concerned. So that weird joke comparison doesn't make any sense, because, like, and even then, it's nowhere near as good as the Guardians of the Galaxy themselves. There's nothing inherently weird about this cast of characters, unlike Guardians of the Galaxy. So that line just falls completely flat. And everything about it is just so bland and boring compared to the games that, from what I've seen and from what I understand, they're visually vibrant, colorful at times, and varied with their environments that, like, feel lived in, but also feel like alien until you, like, really start to explore them and kind of get to know them as you're basically monster hunting. And the monsters themselves are distinct. Some are very, like, colorful, some are very playful and silly, some are, like, really ominous or dangerous. Like, they have, like, these really interesting character designs about them, which is why people kind of go nuts over the monsters, or, like, whenever they add a new one, or the fact that your armor, is based off of one of these monsters that you've, killed. And in this film, the environment you have is just sand and, like, poorly lit areas, which is, just so generic and just so the par. As well as the monsters, they're basically just one solid color, or they just have an overall dark scheme. Like, they basically look the same. You can't tell them apart. I mean, I know some of the monsters' looks. I honestly think they're just being attacked by the one monster. That's what it looks like, because they've got no color to them. There's no character. There is nothing here in this trailer that makes it anything, faithful or referential to the game series, and it doesn't even come across as a good film. So it's failed on every single front. Fans don't like this. Audiences are going to be bored by this. It just is pathetic at the end of the day. I have no idea why Capcom has gone back to Paul W.S. Anderson, because he was the same guy who did the Resident Evil films, and nobody liked those Resident Evil films. Sure, they made money, but they didn't make, a mass ton of money. They weren't critically well received or anything. And the funny thing as well, which always annoys me, is the fact that Capcom was originally George A. Romero, the director and man who quintessentially created the zombie franchise, which did inspire the Resident Evil franchise, was going to direct a Resident Evil film, and Capcom turned his script down. Just let that sink in. They turned down his script. But yeah, this is just garbage at the end of the day. I hope this film gets thrown in the trash the moment it comes out in the cinema, because it absolutely deserves it. Especially coming off the heels of average at best video game adaptations, being Detective Pikachu and the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which I've only seen a little bit of, and I don't think it's anything great, but it's not god-awful. I would say it's technically the second best adaptation, and even then I don't think it's that good. Detective Pikachu is fine. But, yeah, it's just awful. And speaking of awful, we have a trailer to end this podcast with, which is so bad, I didn't even bother making notes on it. And that's going to be for The Empty Man. This film looks like a hot mess. It's honestly laughable at points. The acting is absolutely terrible in this trailer, especially that beginning scene where they obviously were going to explain how you summoned the empty man, where this time it's like you have to blow into a bottle, which is just random as hell, and you have to like repeat the word empty man. It's very, Scary Mary, Jeepers Creepers, Candyman, Bye Bye Man. This is what this film is. They looked at the Bye Bye Man and went, yeah, we need to do another one of those, because that film was so damn successful. This film is just rubbish. The only interesting thing about it is like that weird skeleton thing you see in the trailer. That looks kind of cool. That looks like something you might see in Doom, but that's about it. Clearly all the money just went into that thing, which is why it's the only thing you see in the trailer. Watch this trailer and have a laugh. Don't watch the film unless you're going to pirate it or watch it for free, because it's absolutely trash, and Hollywood, whoever, needs to stop jumping on this stupid trend of monster that you can't say his name or he's gonna get you, very much like Slender Man, Bye Bye Man once again. All those films are shit, and Hollywood needs to stop. And I'm only bringing this film up just so you can avoid it, simply put. But I'll link the trailer in the description, the download link. But yeah. And you can also email me at raccoonplusfriends@gmail.com if you want to discuss anything else, or you have any other recommendations, questions, whatever it is. I'm not really promoting my Twitter too much because I'm probably going to delete it soon. I really don't like Twitter. And I guess I'll give you the video of the episode. I almost had to think there for a sec. And that is going to be The Garden with Thy Mission, featuring DeMarco. Because I've had such a not so great couple of days / weeks, this music video always puts a smile on my face, and I guess you can kind of say it's a bit, spooky, or part of the season of it being Halloween, although not really. But it's a funny video. Definitely the lines of it are very nonsensical and just all over the place in an intentional way, and I just really like this video. And I also want to give a shout out to the band The Garden, who I think are pretty underrated. So hopefully you guys enjoy that video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the podcast. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of the final podcast of October or towards the end of the year. People who usually do appear on the podcast have definitely expressed interest in wanting to be on said podcasts. So hopefully we'll see and hear them in the future, or I'll see them, you'll hear them. And I guess I'll end this podcast like I always do by saying I was the Angry Raccoon, and I will see you on the next podcast.